Okay, good evening. This is the Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission agenda for Tuesday, October 19th, 2021. You'll have to forgive me if there's a little bit of lisping tonight. I just got out of a root canal, so I'm still a bit numb. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Scott, could you call roll for us?
Yes. Sue Hubbard,
Here.
Ruth,
Here.
Kevin Bruley,
Here.
and Carmen Burden.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have quorum. Can I get a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay. Any discussion, comments, changes? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, public comments. Do we have public comments tonight? No. Okay. Chairman's comments. There's a lot of good things on this agenda. I think we're finally starting to see some momentum on some of the things that we've been working on, initiatives getting going, the contract for the site planning out at Leatherwood is part of this. The bylaws are part of this. We've got some really good things in the works. We recently got the grant from the Forestry Service. We've got more things kind of in the future. We've been looking at all of the issues, kind of compounding issues at Basin Park, and I had a meeting with the mayor earlier this week to discuss it. And when Scott and I were talking about it, we agreed that the best approach at this point is going to be get a consultant in, do a complete inventory and assessment of the park. The band shell, which has some obvious needs of repairs, is something that we're going to have to take a really hard look at because, frankly, most of it can't be repaired the way it was built. The only thing I can figure out is that they built the building and then built the retaining wall around it. There's only about 4 inches between the building and the retaining wall, and it has wood siding all the way down.
Oh, gosh.
So Scott sent me a picture. They finally got all the leaves and soil and debris that's been building up in there for years, if not decades, and it's all rotten. So making repairs to the inside is going to be kind of pointless until we figure out how to address that. So Scott is currently putting together an RFP for a proposal that we'll be sending out to firms to come do a full assessment and create some conceptual plans based on things that we talked about in the workshop 6 months ago, 7 months ago, that we can then present to the mayor and the city council and the community and hopefully get some momentum behind making some of the repairs that need to happen. But again, kind of like the same with Leatherwood, we need to have a long-term vision for what it's going to be before we start chipping away at the little things. I think that's about all I've got. Scott, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. I'll try not to duplicate too many things. As was mentioned, I do have actually 2 RFPs that I'm working on. One is for an assessment of the dam railing and try to come up with a design or at least a concept on how we're going to repair those. I think there's a very strong push for a historically accurate assessment so we can maintain our historical status out there. And so that's our primary objective, but an RFP is the most logical way to go about looking for those sorts of ideas. Who's going to come not just with the bottom dollar, but who's going to come to us with some realistic concepts of how to get this repaired, hopefully to maintain the historical status, but also deal with the enhanced codes for safety, which the existing railings weren't built under those codes. So we've got one of those, or an RFP for the dam railing and assessment, as well as for Basin Park, that I'm in the process of. Magnetic spring, one of our worst issues, I'm pleased to report, is about to begin. The contractor, Stacy's Stonework, has been out there and diverted the flow of the water out of the basins, and is just preparing to, hopefully within the next week, get out and begin that work. I'm really excited to get that done, and I would really love to see it done by the end of the year. And if he is able to start in the next week or so, that's very realistic. Should we mention issues as to potential bridges and those sorts of things, or?
Well, I think it's probably worth at least mentioning it, that, you know, the NWA Trailblazers came to us with a grant offer a while back, part of it to correct issues on the downhill trails and address some of the ongoing maintenance issues, one, and two, the skill level of the majority of the trails was beyond the skill level of the majority of the riders. So what they're doing is taking some of the more difficult trails, and if not taking features out, making it easier for less skilled riders to ride them, so that we distribute the traffic across all of them. And if you look at the data that we have on ridership, there's as many riders using downhill number 6, which is the one green trail, as 1 through 5 combined. So distributing it is going to help ease the maintenance load on some of it, and it actually will reduce the maintenance load on the least ridden ones, because the less you ride them, the more maintenance they need as well. So it's kind of trying to find a balance. The other piece of it is that they have money that they are willing to provide to help us solve the problem of bridging Leatherwood Creek at the ball field end of the park. And we've looked at a number of locations with an engineer, settled on a location that's going to be the shortest span, the easiest reach, the least obtrusive, and he's working on that from the standpoint of figuring out feasibility and costs and all that sort of thing. And as it gets closer to reality, then we will come back with proposals for the commission to look at and weigh in on. But it's been one of the big glaring issues during the wet seasons, is that there is no way to get across the creek anymore. I mean, it's completely cut off from the lake down, and including the dam. And so one of the things, and I should mention, as part of the decision to focus on the restoration so that we don't compromise yet another national landmark structure, is that we'll put it back the way it is, knowing that it really isn't the ideal way across from one side of the park to the other. And we've already broached the subject with the Trailblazers about next year funding a bridge at the north end of the park below the spillway, where it's already throated down, and we can get to it fairly easily from both sides and provide switchbacks up to the trail system.
That's good.
Thank you. And the short of it, and the exciting thing about it is that it'll provide us a safe and effective way to take hikers and bikers both from the parking space over to where virtually all of the trails start and conclude. So I'm really excited about that. It has been an issue that we've spent a lot of time trying to come up with a solution for, and it's one that looks like, with money that's been, let's just say, allocated to us at this point, that we should be able to get this done for very little expenditure on our part. And I don't know if you got my message or not, but our engineer that was helping us on this did verify that we are not going to need a permit through the Corps of Engineers. So this is a project that could be completed in a surprisingly quick pace once it gets started. So that's the good news. The last thing I wanted to mention is we've been waiting for quite some time for Wolf Tree Service to deal with some of the larger, more dangerous trees for our people to remove. The most notable one is the very large one in Basin Park that we're going to need a crane to remove. But it's at the point where if it's not done soon, it's the aim of its likely fall would be right at the band shell. So it's one that we need to do. November 1st, 8 o'clock in the morning. The road's going to have to be closed off for approximately 4 hours, and I'll be working with the local businesses and make sure that they receive a flyer, know why we're doing it, and the brief period of time that we're actually closing the road will not be too big of an impediment for anyone. So I'm glad to see that is going to be done soon as well before really bad weather kicks back in. The one tree there in Basin especially is a concern, so I'm glad to see that we're getting that done. And that's all that I have.
Okay, thank you. Committee reports? Any? All right. And no old business, so we go straight to new business. Okay, as everyone realizes, we have a couple more vacant seats than we did the last time we met. One happened to be the vice chair and one happened to be the secretary. So we need to refill those positions. Would anyone like to raise their hand for the secretary position?
If nobody wants to, I'll be willing to do either one, but I haven't a clue. If someone will help me.
It's taking minutes, and I think Dave's form there, if we've got that.
I mean, I've done it before, and I very poorly because I didn't know what I was doing. So if someone just show me what to do, I'll do it.
And I do the agenda now. In fact, we also have been working with Dave some on doing working with him on the minutes as well. So I can work with you on that.
And I have a clue how to take the minutes and what you're supposed to do. It's the technological part that I don't know, so that's what I need help with.
Okay.
I can barely operate my phone. Not that bad, but still.
All right, so do we have anyone who would like to step up for vice chair?
If I can make a suggestion?
Yeah.
It's not out of line to possibly have them interim positions until the new commission members are
Yeah.
appointed, and then they could take over, because as I recall, these positions have a time frame. Is it
Well, it's annual.
annual?
Annual.
I mean, hopefully we'll have one or two chairs filled by the January meeting when we come around to voting. So it would be interim just to the next January session. So why don't we do this? Are you fine with being vice chair?
Sure.
And we can just leave the secretary position open for now, Scott, if you're,
I would do the second if it's just for a couple of months.
okay. So let's do that. Okay, can I have a motion nominating Sue for secretary?
I move to appoint Sue Hubbard as secretary for the Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission, effective immediately.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carries. Okay, second item, filling the position of vice chair. Can I get a motion to nominate Ruth to take the seat of vice chair?
I move to appoint Ruth Hager as vice chair of the Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission, effective immediately.
Second?
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Housekeeping's over with. Third item, approval of the third quarter financial statements. And Scott has done a really good job of putting this together. I think we all got the two versions, so I always ask him to give me a comparison to last year, and the comparison to last year is what's creating the 9-page report.
Yeah.
Because of all the old categories that we deleted that were unnecessary, but they have to show up in order to do the line by line. The P&L that just shows this year to date is only 4 pages. And actually, when we get the new chart of accounts in the system, it'll be even less than this. But just to make a few comments and observations on it, I think we're having a really good year, and I think we're ahead of what we projected in terms of total income when we did the budgets. We're slightly below the expected expenditures to date because we had budgeted money for Magnetic Spring and some work in Basin Park and some things that have not yet kicked off, but they will. In fact, we may be complete with Magnetic Spring by the end of the year. So it looks really strong. Probably one of the most promising things is that we've got really strong numbers on the shuttle operations, both our direct operations and what we've been able to get through the licensing program. And oddly enough, the summer is not the peak time for the shuttles. The peak time is really in the fall, kind of into now and through until it starts getting really cold. So I would expect that we're going to wind up probably netting 50,000, if not more, on the shuttle operations, which I think is a real positive considering we lost 20,000 last year.
Yeah.
So, and then other things are doing well. I think the revenue from cabins, camping, and that sort of thing is actually down a little bit, isn't it? Or is it?
We had a little bit of, I don't have the comparisons of this year and last year.
Yeah.
Actually, I do right here. We had some odd twists, such as the cabin rental is down, and
No, the
Yep.
camping is down and the cabin is up.
right, had that
Oh,
backwards.
no, I got it backwards. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong columns. You had it right. I've got it wrong.
At any rate, there are a few things there that there's no real explanations for.
Yeah.
And as you mentioned, by the way, this time of the year, our shuttle service actually is picking up. We had an $1,800+ weekend this weekend.
Excellent.
So, yeah, that looks like we'll go out with a bang this year.
How long was cabin 1 down for the remodel?
It was up to about 4 months, but it was
Okay.
during the winter months where
Wouldn't have been rented that
wouldn't
much
have-
anyway?
Yeah, it wouldn't have been rented
Okay.
out.
I mean, 2020 was such a strange year, it's hard to compare to that anyway.
I know, it is, and it really skewed in the parks numbers. We saw it comparing it to 2019.
Right.
Camping and cabin rentals were through the roof compared to 2019, even though the park was closed for an entire quarter. So I think, we're going to see that as we come out of COVID
Yeah.
and people get back to taking other types of vacations, I would fully expect to see these numbers flatten out a bit. Although I think we still have opportunities for continuing to drive good traffic into the park. And that's part of what we'll be dealing with the site planning exercise that'll be starting soon. So does anyone have any specific questions about the financials, any concerns that they see?
I just had a couple of kind of nitpicky questions, but I was just trying to understand the format. So Scott, on page 1, you have income LLCP,
Yes.
and then you have items below that, which I assume, that's the header and it falls under it, but I couldn't figure out why there was an amount next to that and what that covered.
Next to income LLC
Yeah, for $66 is in the same line.
for $66. Might I?
So it seemed like that should be
Oh, I
included
see.
somewhere down below.
Yes. I see the one she's asking about. There's a heading that says income-LLCP, and there's
Okay.
$66 in there. Those are the types of things that we've been trying to clean up, is accounts such as that one that says income-LLCP. That's one that just simply because it is there as an account, occasionally the bookkeeper will use it, probably shouldn't have. It is income from, that is income from LLCP, but it should have gone under something like bait shop sales or boat rental.
Yeah.
To get this report out, we had to clean up, we have to go back and actually clean up a lot of those accounts that shouldn't have been. And so that's what that is. It was a charge that is, in fact, income from LLCP, but it's the type of thing that we are cleaning up.
Okay.
If you had looked at our P&L a year ago, you'd have seen dozens of accounts like that, and we're at the point where we're down to just a few. It is a bit tedious to clean those up, because you
Yeah.
have to go in every transaction that it was used on in that particular period, you have to go and make a change on. So on the bright side is, we expect that when we start 2022, we will have a completely revised chart of accounts, and we won't have any of those redundant and superfluous accounts that cause that sort of an issue.
Yeah.
As to the accuracy of these, it is accurate. It's just, it would have been a little more easier to understand if it was in one of these other
Right.
categories.
Yeah, and this is probably the similar thing, but on page 3, you actually have two headings that say office expenses with amounts by them. And I think one is the title, and then one is a category underneath it, but they both have amounts next to them.
Expense.
Page 3.
Yes, and that is in fact the same type of thing. The first office expense that you see there is actually a parent account, and then these others are sub-accounts of those. And so that's the type of thing that we've been doing to kind of clean up these accounts. And that would in fact be one that we will work on. We'll remove that upper office expense account and just have these, the ones that are below it.
It seems in going through these over the last year, what happened was that they would set up an account as a heading, and then they would populate under that with this detail, and in the kind of the worst offender was the fuel, where it was divided up by individual vehicle, which is kind of a meaningless thing to know. But sometimes when a charge is being put in, if it wasn't marked on it which vehicle it was for, it would go into the heading, which was not what it was intended to do. So
Right, yeah.
as we set up, when we've worked through this new chart of accounts, the whole idea is to have very clear headings and then have 2 tiers of breakout so that you can print just a one-page summary that shows you top line expenses and revenue, and then you can break it out into a level of detail, but nowhere near the level of detail that was here. It was, and I can understand it, there were so many different accounts and so many created by different people that sometimes when Nicky would go to enter something, he'd pull up the first one, and sometimes it was an account heading, and sometimes it was an itemized account. So
Yeah.
that we're going to make go away. It's just, again, we kind of, all along, this was the initial cleanup to get us into, to reduce 5 pages off of a report. The next one is going to go in and really take a deep dive into all of the accounts and how they're organized, and then there'll be very strict instruction that nothing gets added. So
So then just on the second page, under total capital, was something claims paid, and I wasn't sure what that was.
Yes, claims paid would be if somebody's made a claim against us, we haven't had any auto accidents, but for instance, if there was an auto accident and it was below the amount that insurance would cover, or it was our portion of the deductible, it would go under claims paid. So that's what that is. Off the top of my head, I know we had an employee that another employee was moving a ladder and hit one of our employees' own vehicle's windshield, that sort of thing. So it's just claims that come up that usually accidents of some sort.
Okay.
And that's what that is.
Thanks, Scott.
Okay, anything else? Anyone else? Okay, can I get a motion to approve the third quarter financial statements?
So moved. Or should I say it?
Any further discussion? Guess we should have done that.
Was there a second?
Yeah. Did you second?
I didn't, but I will.
Oh, I thought
okay.
you did, I'm sorry, I thought I heard you.
Okay, I thought I heard second. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Done. Okay, item number 4, approval of Crafton Tulls Associates proposed contract for the preparation of site plans for Lake Leatherwood City Park. This we had on the agenda before. It was the only proposal we had. We pulled it off the agenda because Scott was able to find another firm that was willing to make a proposal for the same scope of work, and then it turned out that their proposal was significantly higher. So we're back with the work that Crafton and Tull is proposing to do. I would, just a couple comments on it. If you read the contract description, it says master planning services, and this is master planning in the context of what these guys do. This is really for us they're going to prepare an existing site plan of the activity areas. It's not going to encompass the entire park. It's not going to identify the glades or potential glades. This is just the built activity areas that we have. The cabin area, the field, the meadow, and then the ball field area. And then they're going to work with us and create conceptual designs that make recommendations for changes, if anything, and where any future development could be and what it could be. And so one of the things we've been saying for a long time is that the ball fields are the most underutilized and one of the most expensive areas of the park to maintain. And so we want to take a hard look at what do we realistically keep in the way of the soccer fields? Do we keep the baseball diamond, which is never used for anything except soccer on tournaments? Or do we repurpose that to become another day use area that takes some of the pressure off the current day use area in the park? And then what are the activities that are down there? So that's the objective of this work. The first page and a half is boilerplate and very standard in the industry. And then Exhibit A is the actual services that they're going to propose. How they're going to do it, and it's broken into 2 phases, which is basically existing and evaluation, kind of an audit, if you will, come back with recommendations, and then based on the conceptual designs that we will discuss, and we will most likely have a public hearing to discuss, give them direction on what a final site plan should be, and they'll develop that a little bit further. So, can I get a motion on accepting this proposal from Crafton Tull?
I move that we accept the proposal as presented by Crafton Tull for Lake Leatherwood.
Can I get a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion?
Yeah,
Questions?
I just want to make sure the document that was with the agenda, has that changed at all from when this was in workshop? And
No, it has not.
Okay.
The main thing that we had put it on hold for in the last meeting was for me to get at least one other proposal, which was approximately 50% higher than this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I did talk to at least one, I think actually two others, that were interested in working with us, and I told them we really wanted to get this moving, and we have a couple of other RFPs that I'm working on, and so the only difference is that we have some other numbers to consider, and this remains the lowest bid. That's not always a good thing. Sometimes the lowest bidder's not the best way to go, but and sometimes by law we don't have a choice. This time we get the best of both worlds. Crafton has got a very good reputation, and they did come in low. I think they look at it as sort of a lost leader to get their foot in the door.
Well, I've worked with them in the past. They're a really good firm,
Yes.
have a really strong reputation. Matt Crafton's father actually started the firm 40 years ago, 50 years ago. He's now the CEO of it. It's been around for a long time, and they're really good people to work with. I think we'll get a good work product out of them, and it will be an enjoyable exercise. Any other comments, questions? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. And then the last item on the agenda is the bylaws. So I sent you guys the copy with all of the markups on it so you could see the comments that came from the workshop, how we addressed those and what we did. I will tell you, I met with the mayor on these Thursday or Friday of last week. He had had them to review, to get his feedback on it. He felt very comfortable with everything that we had in here. I will bring to everyone's attention that what we will be approving, hopefully, tonight, has one paragraph in here that is, we decided to leave it in here, but there's a note on it that it is going to be pending an ordinance amendment, and that is the ability to have one at-large commissioner, so kind of like CAPC, someone from within the county. It'll make it a little easier for us to fill the commission up, and it brings in, a lot of the people that come in on a regular basis for public comments don't live within the city limits, so it increases our pool a little bit, gives us a little more expertise to choose from. The second thing is, we had put a clause in here. Originally, the way it was written was that we would have the right to request the city council to remove a commissioner based on attendance. So missing 3 meetings in a row without a reason, or missing 6 meetings in a 12-month period. Since we put that in there, the city has actually adopted an ordinance covering removal of commissioners across the board, all commissioners. And so we've just changed that paragraph to state that that commissioner can be removed based on the ordinance. I'm trying to find where it was. I think it was right here. Based on the ordinance that was passed at the last city council meeting, and they actually have a broader set of criteria for determining whether a commissioner should be removed. It will require the commission to vote to request the city council to take action. So, but I think that covers everything that we need it to do. And other than that, it's everything that we discussed in the workshop has been amended in here. Some of the issues, the advice that I got was that those were really more procedure manual type of things. And so as soon as we have these in place, then we can start getting to work on the Parks Manual and updating it and getting it in line with what we've got here. So can I get a motion to approve the bylaws?
I move to approve the proposed bylaws, City of Eureka Springs Parks and Recreation Commission.
Second?
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. And no, commissioner comments.
Don't have
You got
any.
anything?
No.
Ruth, have you got anything for us?
Nothing exciting other than thank you, Kevin and Scott, for all your hard work doing all this. The bylaws are important. I'm glad they're getting done.
Yeah, so I actually do have comments tonight. I actually have several. So the first is around the issue of putting in this new bridge, potentially putting in the new bridge and changing trails if the alignment is the actual route is changing. The one thing is, I've been looking back at the Miners Rock and when the original downhill was put in, there was a lot of concern that the public didn't really get listened to before it happened. And I hope we can do that in this and put it out and give people a chance to comment. And I hope that hikers will get taken into account in this, and especially the bridge placement. It will be something that is useful to them. It's not just, it should work for mountain bikers, but it should also work for hikers.
Well, that was actually our primary concern, because mountain bikers can ride around the road fairly easily. This is, and especially the downhillers, because they're not going to be riding in the rain. So part of the thought process behind finding a location for it is where it will be up above even the seasonal, the heavy seasonal flooding areas. So that is absolutely an objective.
Okay, great.
The goal, and I've been working on a draft of objectives for Miners Rock to correct a lot of the issues. And we've also been having conversations with the Foundation and Trailblazers about funding some of these initiatives to get the Miners Rock portion of the park back to a place where it is inviting for other trail users.
Great, good. Really glad to hear that. Yeah, and then also one of the other concerns when the downhill originally put in was the loss of habitat, and particularly leatherwoods. And we don't really, as a park, have a policy of, if we're putting in a new relaying a trail or putting in a new trail, what the review process is before we do that. But I hope we can come up with something so we're making sure that any routes we're picking are not more environmentally degrading than they need to be, and that we're avoiding things like rare plants.
Yeah.
The next issue is around the master plan. This is something that it's been mentioned in these meetings but hasn't really gone out to the public yet. And I know that Crafton Toll was involved with public meetings and taking it out there. But I really hope we can keep the public really involved in this process. I'm used to something called scoping meetings, where before planning happens, you go to the public and say, what do you want us to consider in this? Are the things we should be doing with these resources we're not, and we should consider in this planning? So I hope the public get a chance to give that kind of input right at the beginning, and then not at, somewhere way down the line given a couple of options, or get presented with a plan that's already pretty fully developed and asked to comment on it. That we really get some input that can be put into this process, and that people are made aware of what's going on, so that it feels like a transparent process and something isn't happening behind their back. And then my third comment, and sorry I have so many tonight, but it just came up, is around the issue of music in basin parks and the permits. As you all know, there was emails on that just today. So because it's clear there's still a lot of confusion about this. And I'm not commenting on whether we have the power to put that in place or whether we should put that in place. But just as far as the implementation, when we were discussing the rules and regulations, and I'd just come on the board, I kept asking, is this a rule we're really going to put in place? And the reason for that is, I know it takes a lot of work and effort to have a permitting process, to really enforce a rule or ordinance, and things really need to get thought out beforehand. I mean, there's still nothing up on our website that talks about needing a permit or how to get a permit. I actually couldn't find the Eureka Springs Facebook page when I just looked today. I don't know, just dropped down, lower down the page, but it didn't pop up. But I mean, it needs that. I mean, when law enforcement was first, as far as I understand, when law enforcement was first talking to people in the park, the mayor was not aware of this. That's a major kind of oversight. We have to make sure that all the city departments are aware and people know how to direct people and tell them, oh yes, you do need a permit, this is where you go to. And we just need to make sure that, it takes a lot of thought and implementation. And I just really hope that we can kind of learn for this. And in future, we'll really kind of think about how we implement these laws and make sure the public know. And that we have, the infrastructure to really have that be a successful thing where people can find that information, can act on it, and hopefully we'll follow it. But at least they, it's not. If someone who's obviously looked into those rules and can't find out where they are, we should. That's kind of an issue. And I also finally want, in that same issue, want to make a comment that I found out the city does have a very clear music ordinance, and we have this little rule in our rules and ordinance tucked off here. That's probably not good policy, and I don't know, how we avoid that. But it seems like things all should be in one place so people do have a chance of finding them and being aware of them.
So I will tell you the reason for the permit was that the ordinance that the city council passed 10 years ago put very specific criteria in there and absolutely no enforcement mechanism. And that the biggest complaints that Scott has to field are from people who camp out there all day, multiple musicians, aggressive musicians who they may not be charging a fee, but they're certainly encouraging people to donate. This was meant as a mechanism to control when they were going to be there, where they can set up, just like we didn't adopt any new rules. All we're doing is trying to enforce the rules that the city created and never enforced. So you're right, there could have been better communication around the permit, but the confusion was a little bit, there were a lot of reasons for the confusion, probably the largest of which was nobody picked up the phone and called the park's office and asked about it.
And I might add that historically, some of the confusion with that began so long ago, where even though it was our area of concern, it was our park, it was the city hall was where you got the permit for the art in the park. And that was all started with multiple discussion with the Eureka Springs Arts Council, with public input, how should we do this, artists, because most of it was art related then. The music wasn't as big a deal. It was more the artists. 20 people show up one day and all want to put their art in the park, and the next day somebody's doing art they shouldn't be doing. The control issue is what it was. And for whatever reason, maybe it was just for the administrative reasons, we had Bruce back then, I'm talking a long time ago, and the actual permit, you went to City Hall to get it. We didn't really do much with it. And that's kind of where it started. Even though it was our park, City Hall did it. So I don't really know how along the way it didn't get...
I had a long discussion with the mayor and with Kim and with Ann Armstrong, and that part of the problem is that the city has taken on permitting in Basin Park, even though by ordinance and by state statute, it's our responsibility.
Right.
So we came to an agreement on things. There are a few things that we need to look at, and part of this is, revenue from permits. We get the revenue from some of the permits, but not from all of the permits. Permits that are taken out by CAPC. At some point, the decision was made it didn't make sense for one commission to pay another commission, but we're the ones that's maintaining the facility. And so the revenue should be coming to us to be able to maintain the facility properly. So there are still things to be worked out, and they're one of the things that that the mayor pointed out, is that sometimes rules are created that aren't, fully vetted through. If you read through the municipal code, there are a lot of ordinances that conflict with other things. So we're aware of that, and we're moving forward. But there needs to be something in there that holds people, because the honor system hasn't been working. And you can't expect an honor system to work for an ordinance that has rules like that.
Yeah, no, I understand that. I'm just saying our implementation could have been a little better, could have been better on that.
If I could comment on that. First of all, the application process is very simple. I put together a little trifold brochure, the front side of which is just a little informational, the second side of which, that is the application. It asks for a name, an address, a phone number, where and when they want to perform. And that's it. Because the ordinance that was in place and has been in place for quite some time has a couple of requirements. Number one, they're supposed to perform in specific areas. I find them sometimes scattered. In fact, about 2 weeks ago, one with a blanket full of jewelry that he was selling that wasn't even legal for him to be selling, because it has to be something that they create then and there, not something that they're buying wholesale and selling out there and competing against store owners.
Right.
But at any rate, he was right literally in the middle of the traffic way. I asked him to move to one of the spots, and I showed him this. The ordinance that is in place from the city council has a couple of issues. Number one, no more than 2 hours per day, and secondly, you have to be in a specific location, not in the middle of the traffic flow. So that's all that this is to give people when and where they're going to perform. It enforces, it is the enforcement mechanism for the ordinance that has been in place all along. Mm-hmm. How do we, and I can tell you, having been in that park almost daily for 3 years now, I see people out there sometimes 8 hours a day. I mean, there's stuff scattered all over.
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, but where is this available to people? If someone shows up in town, hoping to play in Basin Park over the weekend, do they have access? To that? How once they filled it out, what do they do with it?
A couple of ways. Ann at City Hall, I gave her some because she had. She said she didn't have a mechanism for that, so I gave her some of these. A lot of them go to her because she's the one that issues the special permits.
Right, yes.
And so, she has these, and I keep them, keep in mind, we don't just call the police and have somebody thrown off or thrown out of the park and arrested. This is something that I go up to somebody, I give this to them and say, hey, please fill this out. It's easy. They can email it to us. They can fill it out then and there and give it to me. They can bring it to our office, whatever is the easiest for them.
Okay, so that form has the office hours?
Well, our office
But
hours.
does it let people know where the park is? Because it's not easy to find if you're new in town.
Where Basin Park is?
No, the Parks office.
Well, if we were going to get into that degree of specifics, it would be more than one page, but
GPS can get you
I'm just trying
there.
to think of some, if someone doesn't have to, some people may go to Ann's office, and that's very reasonable, she has them.
yes.
But the odds of them running to Scott are probably pretty minor. So, how it's not on the website. There's nothing on the city that tells them to go to parks.
Okay.
I mean, there's a lot of, if I just can't imagine, if I came into town trying to navigate, you say it's easy, but getting to the point where you can have the information to do that.
And the information, the phone number at least, is right here
Okay, good.
on the flyer.
Good.
As I recall, it's on the list of the rules as well that states that they need a permit. That's in 2 spots in the park. I would love to have this in a kiosk there as well, but we don't have a kiosk and probably won't until the repairs to Basin Park are done. But that would be helpful. And then finally, in a more comprehensive approach to, I think, what you're talking about is, we have a couple of permits that, we've worked on over the last year, and I'm working on a comprehensive one that goes through a checklist. If you're asked You know, if you want to sell art in the parks, go to this form. If you want to go here, go to that form. And those forms will all be part of that. And it will also, that can be put then on the website as well. Each of those pages can be implemented on in our website. So that, in fact, was working on this evening before I came here. It's very close to being ready. Probably present it at our next regular meeting, if not our workshop. And that'll be very helpful as well, because it'll take you through all the way. I mean, whether you want to do a major event like a Fat Tire Festival, or whether you want to go into the park and play your guitar for 2 hours, it'll be one place that you can go and follow all of the steps necessary to get to where you want to be.
Good, that sounds great.
Thank you. Oh, you're not a commissioner, never mind. Okay, approval of minutes from last month. Can I get a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
I'll second.
Any comments or corrections? No?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. It's unanimous. Okay, that wraps it up. Thank you, everybody.
Oh, did we have to motion to adjourn? Did we do that? Did we adjourn?
Yep.
I was not listening.